Hello everyone, my name is Anshul, co-founder and CEO of Vodex.ai. Welcome to the Vodex Podcast, where we explore the systems, technology strategies, reshaping and regulating the voice communication in arm tech industries, insurance, healthcare, and beyond. Today we are joined by Michael, co-founder and managing partner at Corporate Advisory Solution and expert merger and acquisition advisor in Account Receivable Management firm. Michael has helped steer over more than $2 billion worth of armed transactions and is a trusted voice on tech enablement, scalability, and compliance. So, welcome to the show, Michael. Thank you so much for joining.
Great to be here, Anshul. Thank you for having me.
So, let's start broad. Uh, collection industry and arm tech industries, they are consolidating rapidly. So, we have seen some consolidation in this industry happening. So, let's start with that. What do you think? What is exactly which is driving this consolidation right now?
Yeah, so let's talk about then and now a little bit because I've been in the industry for almost 25 years. And I will tell you, the industry from a technology perspective, I never thought it would get here to what we're seeing. It's exciting stuff, Anshul. It's really, really cool to see where the industry was from a call and collect perspective and where we're going to be heading and what even the future beyond of where we are today is, what it's going to look like. And a lot of these technology changes that we're seeing are, from a workflow perspective, beginning to open the eyes of investors, buyers, groups that lenders, people that had usually said, collections, I don't want to touch it. And now, because there's so much tech that's coming in, the business is going to look, and it already has, looks so different than what it did before. And I think we've got an exciting several years ahead of us as the industry changes. But from a consolidation perspective, absolutely. The market is continuing to consolidate. And the driving reason for that is you've got a fragmented market. You've got a lot of smaller operations, bigger and a bunch of large ones that are trying to grow their businesses. And the fastest way to do it is by acquiring. And so that's why you're seeing so much consolidation and change occurring in the space currently.
Awesome. So, you are into mergers and acquisitions. So, I think if you can tell our listeners a little bit more about like how corporate advisory solutions help debt collection agencies who are not familiar with what exactly do. I think that would be really great.
Yeah, sure. Our business, Anshul, we're a boutique mergers and acquisitions firm. We have three pillars or three coverage markets that we focus in on. Our biggest area of focus is the credit and collections ecosystem. So companies that buy, service, litigate every kind of receivable you can think of, both consumer and commercial, and then all the tech that sits around it. The other two areas we do a lot of work in. One area is the call center and business process outsourcing space. Now it's on the contact center or CX type businesses. We do a lot of work there. And then the last area we cover is healthcare, revenue cycle management. Another big area of focus for us. And with each of the coverage areas, M&A is kind of our driver for each of our services, but we also do valuation, exit prep, compliance and consulting. I spent a lot of time on boards as kind of doing board level advisory work with companies, helping them with their growth and then eventual exit planning. And that's kind of where we stick. There's a lot of people that do what we do, Anshul, but that are generalists, right? They'll work with any kind of company imaginable. I got out of that racket a long time ago because I wanted to really know the companies that I was getting involved with to the point where we could actually offer up more guidance than just helping them with a transaction. And that's what we've been doing.
Amazing. So thank you for sharing that. And just wanted to understand because we are in AI space and you have been working with a lot of collection agency. So how do you see like AI playing that kind of role? How do you see AI shaping up the merger and acquisition opportunities in collection agency?
So right now, with where the market is going, you're seeing even the smaller companies beginning to get their mind around how to leverage AI in their operations today.
Right.
A lot of people were scared, a year or so ago, where they're like, AI is only for the big companies. I've got to be 500 FTE to do something with AI. Not the case at all. And I think you would agree with this. You can
Yes.
be a smaller operation and even be more effective to drive your revenue and earnings by leveraging AI in the workflow. And so we've been really trying to drive that message home to owners, C-level executives that are in this industry to have an open mind and be willing to have conversations with folks like yourselves and businesses like yours to say, how can we leverage it and what can we do differently without human interaction where we can to drive margin?
Awesome. No, actually, that's true because we have been talking to a lot of, debt collection agencies, and they have been trying to reduce their cost, operational cost, and they are exploring different ways. Although there is one concern which always has been there is like compliance, like how compliant is your AI solution. So that is one thing which is kind of non-negotiable. Even when we talk to any collection agency, we say like we are solving your compliance challenges. Like uh, today, I think the buyer needs to, they look after uh, organizations when they go for, I think, acquisition or merger. They look for organization where the operations are more automated, more scalable, with less of integration headaches. So I think, yeah, that's operational efficiency is very important.
It is, because remember, this industry is, if you look at their expense structure, payroll is their biggest cost. And then
Right.
after that, it goes compliance and IT. And I will tell you, with everything that's going on with what Trump is doing, with kind of reducing the footprint of the CFPB, it's actually opening people's views to understanding that they shouldn't be scared of technology as a result of, from a regulatory perspective. There will always be risk and uncertainty in any industry, right? This industry is consumer facing, so you have that dynamic that will always be there, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be willing to take on some risk in order to leverage the technology, because it could be so much more beneficial to your operational efficiency, workflow, margin, than not using it at all. And that's really what we've been trying to tell the marketplace too, that you got to do it compliantly, but you have to leverage technology too to get there.
Absolutely. Like the balance is very important. So how do you balance? You cannot negotiate on compliance, but at the same time, you need to, adopt the technology. Otherwise, you will get just, get left behind. So what other
Yes.
challenges do you see these collection agencies face today? Especially these regulatory and these environment that you talked about.
I actually look, like, all the regulatory noise, I put that aside. I really look at where the executives are in these companies that you're talking to, that I'm talking to on a regular basis. And some of them are aging out. It is what it is. It's just like any industry. People are getting to the point where they've reached their 60s, 70s, and they don't want to do this anymore, right? They want to go off and go to the beach, play golf. That's great. We need to do a better job of involving the younger generation that are going to ultimately be stepping into the C-suites of these companies to get them focused on all of the technology changes that are occurring. Because the industry gets pretty exciting if you've got a younger generation of folks that are really understanding how to leverage AI. These businesses, where historically, Anshul, were generating 10, 15% EBITDA type margins, can easily be 20, 30, even 40% EBITDA margin businesses. And that gets folks like us excited, but also attracts investors, private equity, family offices, VC groups into the industry because they see the margin enhancement if they're willing to adopt the tech.
What do you think, like, if we talk about voice AI, a lot of collection agencies are now adopting the voice AI. So, uh, how have you seen the impact of adopting voice AI, like, let's say, before acquisition and after acquisition? What kind of changes you have
Yeah,
seen?
so inbound and outbound, depending on where you're seeing the most effect. I mean, a lot of folks have been very comfortable with leveraging it on an inbound basis,
Hmm.
less so on outbound. But I know the outbound side is beginning to change too. And so I would tell you, post acquisition, after a company is bought, acquired, their first focus is, how are we communicating with the consumer? What more ways can we off we can what else can we do to get them to pay at a pay portal, interact over text or chat without having to talk to a human being? And that, to me, is kind of the mantra that most of these companies that are being bought and sold today are thinking about. But it's not just those that they're thinking about it after the transaction. They're working on that beforehand. They just may not be fully implemented yet. And you're going to see that evolve too, because it's really going to become kind of the table stakes of this industry. If you're not doing this, you're literally missing margin enhancement across your entire business, and revenue, and obviously easier revenue. Because does the 25-year-old person really want to interact live with a consumer, with a debt collector, an agent? I would tell you no. Just from what I'm hearing and seeing on the street, they don't. They want to interact as little as possible.
Exactly, exactly. And I think the experience of the consumer, that is also very important nowadays. Like whenever there is a, like a lender or even a bank, or even for collection agencies, it's not just about collecting, right? It's not just about giving a call or just saying, hey, make the payment. It's also about like what kind of experience they are giving. If the person is just 4 or 5 days, past due their due date, then there's no point, like the type of conversation that will happen will be very different who has not paid since last 6 months. So the kind of
Yes.
experience you want to give, and it's very important to have that consistent experience that you give to all your consumer, right?
I'll tell you though, Anshul, here's where I when I back up and I look at the industry and I say, where does it work and where doesn't it work? I'll tell you where
Mm.
it's going to be really difficult to work, even 5 years from now. And maybe I'll be completely wrong on this point, and that's fine. But I really think with the large balance type receivables, right? The student
Mhm.
loan account, the large commercial B2B account that's 50, 100,000 in average balance, getting a consumer or a business just to pop on and hear the virtual agent say, here, we're going to work through this. I have a hard time seeing that. And I may be wrong. I may be wrong. I easily see it for the $500 Verizon bill, okay, every day of the week. But when it gets big and it gets really complicated, are they going to reach out and want to talk to a human to help them through it? And I think the answer is yes. But is it going to evolve into how lifelike that virtual agent is, where it doesn't matter? Probably. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it.
So I think the mindset really need to shift from when you are getting more and more accounts. People are thinking like they just need to hire more and more people, but with intelligent automation they can achieve much more with. So let's say there is a collection agency planning to get acquired. What do you think, how should they should be approaching the AI integration if their intention is to get acquired by let's say a bigger buyer company?
They need to be first trying to understand which segments of business are going to be appropriate for it and begin to test it well before mergers and acquisitions, because the buyer that's looking at the company is going to have an expectation that you're already utilizing it. And if you're not, they're going to question the viability of the business if it's not being leveraged in some capacity. And so I would say 6 months to a year, whatever the timeline is, to begin implementing and utilizing it on certain workflows, inbound, and obviously testing more to outbound as well.
Amazing, amazing. And you, Michael, since you have been talking to a lot of leaders, in this space, and a lot of collection agency owners and business owners, so what do you see, like what kind of blind spot these agencies are like not paying enough attention to, like in terms of the new technology trends that are happening nowadays?
I, I think there's a bunch, meaning, and I'd probably order it because it's changing so much. Like every year, it's changing. So it's hard to get, and I could put myself in the shoes of these business owners to say, what direction do I go? Which tech vendor do I implement and utilize? Which do I test to see the benefit? Because their biggest quarter of the year, biggest period of the year is tax season, end of January through April, May time period. That's where many of these that's when they make their money. And they all are thinking about, how do I maximize that window of time with my operation? And that's where the technology side becomes very important. So they're always kind of thinking about it. And I think because the Trump administration has come in and kind of changed everything from from the CFPB side, I think last year it was regulation, compliance. And now I think it's shifting into efficiency, operational support, and how to leverage the right technology solutions to help to increase their revenue and earnings. I really think they're thinking more and more about that, mainly because delinquency volumes are going up. So if you go back to where we were in 2008 when the market crashed, we're in a different ballgame. In 2008, we didn't have you, Anshul. We didn't have any of these. We didn't have folks like you. We just had higher delinquencies that weren't collectible, and these companies had to figure it out. Now we're in a different world if we head into a recession, and that's where I think things get pretty exciting for these companies. But they've got to be thinking that way, and I think many of them are.
Interesting. And just trying to understand, you mentioned about the thing that Trump administration is doing. So all these tariffs and new regulations and all, do you think, how do you think that they will impact, collection agencies? Like, do you think delinquencies will increase further in this time as well?
So directly to their businesses, right? The good thing is that tariffs, isn't they're not working with goods, right? Where between Canada and the U.S. or anything like that, they're safe from that perspective. What they're not safe from is the consumer impact, because as things get more expensive, the consumer gets stretched, and then when they're on the phone with them or interacting with them with their virtual agents, they're less inclined to pay or pay in full or settle in full, and it leads to longer term installment plans for payment arrangements that go out longer. And so there's that give and take. That is where technology comes into play. Because if you can begin to reduce your payroll expense, where you're leveraging AI in order to help drive your efficiency, as the volume gets harder to collect, you're then in a better position cost-wise to manage and absorb those changes. And that's where I think the companies that really understand, that have been through multiple recessions and market change, are getting to understand that and are preparing for that with technology to help them support it.
Right. So in some way we can say that like they are going to get huge volume of business in coming days, maybe the collection agency. So they need to be really prepared for that.
It's not just collection agencies. It's law firms. It's the debt buyers. It's the hybrids that do debt buyer, legal, and agency. It's all of them. They're all getting different access points to more placement volumes. But again, they all need to become more efficient. They're
Exactly.
all trying to figure out how to become more efficient with more volume.
Exactly. And I'm just trying to understand this, Michael. So right now the collection agencies and these debt buyer company, they can just outsource their calling efforts to some offshore call center, right? Like maybe in India or Philippines or some other country. So why do you think they should, focus on implementing something like voice AI agents? Where do you think voice AI agent can excel as compared to just outsourcing to some human agents?
It's quality, right? This industry has been there and done that. So is the contact center, call center space. Everyone recognizes that when you shift business over to an offshore location, it doesn't magically always work well, right? There are certain streams that work better than others. But if you're then able to leverage the virtual agent voice with that's quality and lifelike and is able to connect the consumer when appropriate to a live agent, that's really where it gets interesting, right? Because now you've got a full cycle workflow that is able to handle certain streams of business, certain balances. They're going to fit better with the AI agent versus a full cost for a human being. Whether they're cheaper in India or the Philippines, it's still a cost, Anshul. And if they can reduce it with technology and provide a better customer experience, which is what everyone talks about, they want to provide a better customer experience. That means that the only way to get there is with the technology alongside it.
I'm just wondering. So there are so many things in collection space, like you have skip tracing, you have right party contact, the initial connection, and then you have to do follow-ups, multiple follow-ups. There are so many things. So what do you think is the kind of low-hanging fruit? Like if a company like Vodex has to approach a collection agency, what kind of use cases or like how do we approach them so that we can get their trust as well, like make sure that they are not scared. Like sometimes it's very scary if we propose them that we will automate all your operations from end to end. So a voice AI company, how should they approach a collection agency? What's the low hanging
I,
fruit? What do you suggest?
I look, there are certain streams of business that every one of these agencies know is a better option for offshore, nearshore, lower labor costs, where they don't want to spend the money because their fee rates are low in certain cases, where they have to figure out a better workflow. Those are the accounts, and there's usually a higher volume of them. Those are where the testing is happening currently, right? Because they know that they need to handle a lot of volume rapidly, and they need to make sure the connectivity. So if they're already leveraging offshore, nearshore in some capacity, that is an easy solution for you to apply voice AI into that work stream, because then they're getting even better benefit also from a cost perspective when they're looking at it all together, because they're already trying to get as much labor arbitrage as they can with those small balance accounts. So in my mind, that's where the easy no-brainer is versus an account that's a higher balance, more sophisticated discussion, that they have more anxiety on whether they're going to get the same return on the investment.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. I think this has been very invaluable. Like whatever you have shared with us, this has been helpful. I'm sure this will be very helpful for all the collection agencies and arm tech leaders, those who are building, their companies in collection space. So any final piece of advice to, let's say a new collection agency owner or someone who has been running this business, like if they want to just grow and scale their business, and they want to completely like overhaul using technology, what advice would you give to them?
I would tell them to have an open mind. I don't care if they're the 70-year-old operator or they're the 35-year-old operator. They've got to have an open mind to the new technology, and they've got to be willing to evaluate and test it. They can't just say, we're not going to focus on that this year. They've got to put real energy into it, and their team has got to be committed to doing that too. Because sometimes we see even in situations where the owner is really bullish about something, but the team underneath them are, sitting there saying, it's not worth it. I don't want to play in the sandbox, whatever it is. And there needs to be a level of, we've got to open our minds to it and be willing to look at it versus just putting it to the side. And that's what I would urge folks to do.
Awesome,
Open your mind.
awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. And that's exactly where we are also coming. So we have been, in this space since almost like a decade. So we have been building voice AI since 2014. And this is how exactly we help agencies and business owners in collection space, that we are here to help you. We are here to help you with adoption of these technologies. We are here to make sure that like compliance is taken care of first, and then everything else is secondary. And once it's like I totally understand some of the hesitation. It's like when if you're building an aeroplane for the first time, if you're flying that plane, it's slightly difficult for anyone to trust that, because this plane is flying for the first time. But once this plane has flown for like hundreds of time, and everyone is okay sitting in that plane, then for new people it's easy to sit. So I think that's the situation. I think it's just matter of time where everyone will start adopting this. And
But I do think on the compliance side, though, from what I'm seeing and talking to the compliance attorneys that are very active in the collection space, that they're opening their mind to it too. They're urging their clients to open their ideas, thoughts to voice AI versus just simply saying it's not compliant enough yet. And I don't think that's the approach. I'm not an attorney, I'm a finance guy. So, I'm not here giving legal advice, but I'm telling you, it doesn't matter from that perspective. You still need to evaluate it and figure out if it works for you for certain types of accounts.
exactly. I talked to a couple of leaders in collection space, and some of them were like really old. Some of them were 60 plus also, and they said like when the email and the SMS, these kind of technology came, when adoption of that technology was very difficult. Like some people were not even open to adopting SMS and emails and even those kind of things. Yeah, I'm sure like with the time, like people will open up to adopting these technologies, and I'm sure it will help them a lot in saving their cost, increasing their efficiency. And like we have literally heard a story where a small collection agency has purchased a big collection agency. I think 10 people, a small collection agency has purchased a 500 people collection agency. And I think the reason was the smaller collection agency that was using a lot of AI and automation and tech, versus the 500 people, they were just using tech depending on humans. And the smaller collection agency, they just wanted more and more accounts. So they just purchased the bigger one. So, but great insights. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing all that.
Good, Anshul. It's great. It's great to be here, and it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us today. And thank you so much to our listeners as well. And please check out our website, vodex.ai, to see how voice AI is helping firms like collection agencies with scaling smarter and building compliance first collection solution.